Good day, St. Lucia, and welcome to another edition of Chill and Chat. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, and my guest, no surprise anymore, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, the political leader and MP for Castries East. Welcome to Chill and Chat, Mr. Pierre.
Good day, Mondi, and good day to all the listeners and the viewers. It's nice to be here once more.
Yes, and Mr. Pierre, as promised, we told our viewers that we would go into your ministerial portfolio as the Minister for Infrastructure, Port Services, and
Transport.
Okay. So that portfolio, you held that during
2011 to 2016.
So 2011 to 2016.
5 years, yeah.
So
4 or 5.
Again, this is usually what some I think to be a very powerful ministry and a very senior ministry. Again, we saw that you were the Minister for Tourism, Commerce, Financial Services, and Consumer Affairs. What I thought to be a lot of work, a very big ministries, and now they're actually 3 individual ministries. But then for a third time, you now been given even more responsibility, very important infrastructure. Tell us how you thought.
Well, the Minister of Infrastructure is a large ministry, but it's also a very personal ministry in terms of anytime you go on the road, you leave your home, you're on the road. And when you're on the road, you know what happens. It also is a ministry where there's quite a bit of labor. In terms of labor, people want to clean drains, people want to make drains, contractors, small contractors. It's a very personalized ministry, even though it deals with infrastructure. So sometimes you have to make the difference between the capital part of the ministry and the labor part of the ministry, the labor intensive part of the ministry. And it also came at a time, I don't know if you may recall, when the country was still ravaged by the hurricanes, you know, when they came into power. I don't know if you remember the Bad Hill.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall the Bad Hill. The Bad Hill there was a name to call them. There was some.
The land slippages.
Yes, and there was wood all over, and people seem to forget that the whole Bad Hill was bad. The last government had left it in the state of disrepair.
There was a Christmas Eve trough also.
And there was a Christmas Eve trough. We got a Christmas Eve trough also, and that was horrible. You remember that day?
I remember that day coming. I met you and Honorable Sean, I believe, in Dennery, and I think I said, "Merry Christmas, Mr. Pierre." And you looked at me like, "Is there anything merry about today?"
Yeah, but I tell you something. That was a traumatic day. Eh? And what happens is that the Prime Minister at the time, Kenny Anthony, he dealt with the South, and I dealt with the North. And to see people's Christmas cake and children's toys floating and well, it was heartbreaking. You understand? That was Christmas Eve, you know.
I remember.
You understand? And that rain fell literally from 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon till the next morning. You understand? What was sad, you see, when you went into Mark and Bexon, the kids, their clothes to go to church, floating, Christmas cake, and it was hurtful, you understand? And we had to go in there, and we had to deal with it. You may notice that when you went further south, the road had collapsed, so you couldn't cross and go into Vieux-Fort from past Mico. That collapsed. Bexon was flooded. I think Hurricane Thomas was very bad also. But the problem with the Christmas Eve, it came suddenly and it just came. You understand? So that was a very interesting time. You had to deal with that. I did that. And we had to get people. That's the time that we introduced Bailey. We brought in the Bailey bridges, and then we had the foresight to order the Bailey bridges, so the Bailey bridges were there. So you find when the hurricane came, when the Christmas Eve stuff came, we actually put down a bridge in Canaries in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Actually put a bridge in, and then we went to the World Bank, not the World Bank, the CDB for the Canaries Bridge, which is now, we started that. Then the PI Bridge, we put that down in 2 days, you understand? We brought in a guy from the States to train, and local labor. This is why I always tell people the local labor can do it. And we actually put down these 2 bridges because it was impossible. You couldn't pass. You couldn't go across at all. We had to clear Bexon. We actually got Bexon passable where we could pass the same day because people had been stranded. In one side of the country, people were stranded because people were coming from the airport. The airport was closed. People were in the... It was...
I know. And we had reliving that trauma, really.
It was a real trauma, and the Ministry of Infrastructure had to be there. We had to mobilize equipment. We had to mobilize people, and the human parts, the elderly. You know, it was really a time of...
So this was your welcome to the Ministry of Infrastructure.
Yeah, that was a welcome. It was a horrible time, but we got through it. And then the rest is, we got the bad hill going. There were I think there were 3 slopes to be done. We got it done, all within time. You losing, and the sad thing is, we did not interfere in what the last government left, because the Caribbean Development Bank had started the work in terms of the consultants. We never changed it. We never changed the consultant. We kept him. And we did not believe that because they started it, we had to change it. We kept the consultant. He was working on the different regime, so the rules of the game changed. But we kept him there, you understand? And then we got all these slopes fixed. You may recall the battle was 1-lane traffic. I don't know if you recall that. There were all these barriers, and we got it fixed. We got it done.
So, Mr. Pierre, you came in, you had Thomas to deal with, then you had the Christmas Eve trough.
The aftermath of Thomas, basically.
The aftermath. And then you had the Christmas Eve trough. But then there was still major roadworks to be done within St. Lucia. So how were you able to juggle everything?
Sometimes it's good for people to go back. I don't remember Castries, the streets in Castries. I sure you can't remember.
No,
you can't remember the streets in Castries in the year 2012?
No.
You see?
I don't.
You understand? And that's the thing. When I hear people, the present government about roads, as if they were the first people in the country to talk about building roads. I mean, this government is actually ridiculous and boastful for nothing. You remember the streets in Castries? You remember Bridge Street? Take your mind back to Bridge Street. What were you in 2012? You in St. Lucia?
Yes, I was back home.
Think about Bridge Street in 2012. Just think about it.
Not sure.
Exactly. Think about all these streets, Coral Street, Chisel Street. Think about the streets in 2012. Just think about them.
So you're saying that they
we did all the Castries streets. Think about the streets in Soufrière.
Okay, well, definitely.
Yeah. Think about the streets in Vieux-Fort. We did that. So when this government talks about as if
you redid the street in Cicero, I'm very grateful for that.
we did. So, although Soufrière came late, I'm talking about. So we did a lot of roads in the country. So this government is just a whole bluff and fluff for nothing. I mean, Vieux-Fort, Soufrière, Castries, you understand? But of course there were roads to be done. And there still will be roads to be done. But for the government to believe that they're the only ones who ever build roads in the country is a fallacy.
Think, this government did it. So as opposed to you doing it throughout your term, this government is, I mean, when people say, when you smell out asphalt, it's an election time, this government takes this literally. They had 5 years to do it, and in their 5th year, they literally started all these roadworks.
All these roads. At high cost, at very high cost. And you see, talk about these roads, and then let me put it this way. We did design finance also, our government, we did it also. Nothing wrong with it once it's structured properly and the tendering process is there and you look at the debt in the end. This government, up to today, we are not sure as to how much money has the government spent or will spend or has contracted in the design finance model. Right? Now, these roads are at 5% interest, I think, right? And they are short term. Yes. These are actually car loans.
Car loans, you said.
It's car loans. Now, we sit there and we speak about it glibly. But when you have to look at it in the overall picture, you find yourself next year, because most of these loans will begin to be paid, because they're actually loans in 2022, right? And they are 5% interest over a 5-year period. And we do not know the amount. We don't know the amount, you know. Now, kudos for the roads. The people need them. And I'm happy the people need them. Mm-hmm. But we have to be careful going this way. We have to be very careful. But the road situation is not something that we know the roads are important, but the Labour Party built roads, and you can line a series of roads that we built. So roads, we did the roads in Viewfort. We did the road between Viewfort and Labrie. That stretch of road there. We did roads in most importantly, we did roads where people lived through the CDB program. Yes. A number of concrete roads where people live. Drainage, etc. We created employment. So the road thing is nothing new to the United West Party. It's nothing. They can't take the price. It's just that our party, we do not advertise the things that we do enough. But we did roads also. But of course, I did roads, a lot of roads. And before
Castries East is like the driving in car.
Yeah, I did. Don't let anybody hear you.
You can go see it for yourself, folks.
We did these roads, but it wasn't my time. But we did the Castries, the Suffrage to Viewfort Road. We did that. Mm-hmm. That wasn't my time, it was before me. We also did a stretch of road past Viewfort. I think reaching Denry or something, so I can't remember these new roads. That wasn't mine, but we did that. We did all the roads in Denry North. We opened up the north of the country, all the roads by the stadium. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a Labour Party. We opened up Karedi. This is our work. We did that.
I think people take it for granted. I take it for granted that these things
they were not always there. No, they were not always there. All the major infrastructural works in this country, major, from the year 1997. Forget about under Sir John when they did Pigeon Point and the country. All the major works now done by the Labour Party. All the major infrastructure, and that's a fact.
No, I can testify in terms of Castries South, because that's where I'm from. We were in terms of people's homes, the people's houses, a lot of concrete structures, and before mud. When people talk about having experiences of having two shoes, I've had these experiences, and I'm not that old. In terms of just walking out from your house to get to the main road or to go catch a bus. It's always this kind of red clayish mud that you had to deal with whenever it rained. So, my constituency, my community benefited from a lot of these projects.
Yeah. So these roads things, the roads are necessary.
Yes.
And this government is doing roads. And UDP governments have done roads before. But to have a hue and cry as if it's the first time this happened is not true.
But I want to say that, persons are taking some offense to roads at this time because of the economic situation in the country now, where everything comes at the economic cost, Mr. Pierre, where you have people who are hungry, children who cannot go to school, people who cannot pay their mortgages, and some persons are like, okay, how do you spend $20 million on less than a mile of road when people are literally starving? How do you rationalize that? When I say literally, our party, for instance, was building roads, we did not have COVID. We didn't have this economic situation. So, when people want to say, but just let the government build the roads, it's at this time.
And Moni, that's the one I find most offensive. The less than a mile road tournament. That's the one I find the most offensive. You understand? Because there's apps, and when we speak later, I will tell you about the plans for that highway. You see, that's the one I find the most offensive. The government cannot tell me. You see, the government is living in an alternative reality. Two St. Lucias. One St. Lucia for them and their friends, and Lucia for people. The government, up to today, the government has not understood that there are people in this country who've lost their jobs and who are hungry. Yes. Never before, because of COVID. And I've always said, the government, they haven't caused COVID. But the way they handle COVID, there are middle-class families in this country who have had to adjust their lifestyle. And you must hear the stories about mortgages. I mean, mortgages that people can't pay, because right now the bank gave the bank didn't give debt forgiveness. They gave a sort of moratorium on loans, and now these loans are being due. Today, this week, somebody came to my office with a letter from the bank claiming the money. He was sent from the country. The IMF will want the money. So when you borrow, you have to pay back. And this government is on a borrowing spree. As if they don't have to pay back, you have to pay back. So this $20 million for less than a mile of road is offensive. It's not necessary, and this government should have never gone that way.
Yeah. Mr. Pierre, we also see, in terms of the legacy as a minister for infrastructure, I read one document and I saw that, you put down 21 bridges?
23.
23.
Yeah.
I always
23 bridges. We repaired them because after the two hurricanes, Thomas and 23 bridges. But the one that's most significant is the one which I know you want to discuss, is the Bois Orange Bridge. You see? Yes. The Bois Orange Bridge has been the subject of UWP propaganda and malignment in trying. The UWP have a lot of false alternatives, It live in an alternative reality. They make a fuss about the Bois Orange Bridge, the Bois Orange Bridge. I have always said to them, they've carried 2 audits on the Bois Orange Bridge. 2. I've said to them that anytime, let's discuss the Bois Orange Bridge. But that's typical UWP. Propagandists. They refuse to discuss the facts. Let me tell you quickly about the Bois Orange Bridge. The Bois Orange Bridge collapsed after hurricane, got damaged. It's an old bridge. It got damaged badly after Hurricane Thomas, and it collapsed after Christmas Eve. So the World Bank, they said this is an important story. We need to do it. The government appointed a consultant, their consultant.
Okay.
Their consultant, Night's Party consultant. The first proposal was something basically like a raft structure for $3 million. The World Bank looked at it, and the Army Corps of Engineers said, listen to me, that is not good for a major highway. You go do something better than that. So we're going to give you the money. You're going to do the studies again. Their consultant, the one they appointed, and I did not touch. I could have. I refused. So no, and that consultant was appointed not by tender. But
okay.
But the guy is competent. The guy was competent, so I had no problem with that. Their consultant, right? So there was an option for people to be able to pass because that bridge collapsed. They opted for, the government, to spend $3 million on a bypass road without tender.
Okay.
Without tender.
So that's the road that passes behind.
That's the road passes behind now.
Gas station.
That's the gas station. They built that, whereas there was an option to put a Bailey Bridge across and we'll do that and come back to the way we did the Bonte Bridge. So we'll get there in a while, right? And they choose to spend $3 million without tender on that road. The homeowner agreed, the landowner agreed, because of course he agreed. The value of his land goes up, and they bill $3 million. They spend $3 million. The consultant prepared, as I said, the first one was a raft structure. The World Bank said no. So he decided to go for a pile structure. A pile structure to withstand 1 in 100-year storms.
Okay.
Pile structure. That structure was approved by the World Bank for the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers. You following?
Yes.
Good. In the meantime, when that was due, it went to international tender. International tender. I'll say it again. International tender throughout the world. So contractors from St. Vincent as far as Afghanistan could apply. You following me?
Yes.
Good. The estimates that came in were you could have built, you could have spent $10 million, not me, $10 million, and you build a bridge with a pile structure, and you build a two-lane bridge. Or you could spend $12 million to contract the estimate and build a four-lane bridge. A bridge that can take four vehicles, because the idea was to expand the highway into four-lane traffic, right? The government, I decided to do a four-lane bridge with the advice of the cabinet. The international tenders came in, and the lowest tender was $11 million. You know, 11, I'm going to not exaggerate, but the estimate was 12.
Yes.
You see the benefit in tendering?
Yes.
The estimate was 12, but so that means the government saved $1 million basically. Well, then, when the work was completed on that Balawash Bridge, there was a cost savings of $385,000.
We all saved money?
We saved money.
Okay.
So when you hear the propagandists and the liars, excuse my language, make this kind of pronouncement, we actually saved money on the Balawash Bridge in both instances. One, the value of tendering. The tender that came in was $12.7 million. The estimates from the engineer, from the consultants. The tenders, international tenders, came in $11.7 million. Fortunately, it was a local contractor working with, I think, a firm from Brazil. I'm not sure who because it is a piled foundation. And it's a bridge that can withstand 1 in 100-year storms. That means it would withstand a Thomas. Right? Okay. So then $11 million, so we saved. And when the work was completed, we saved $385,000. So there's actually a savings on the Balawash Bridge.
Okay, Mr. Pierre. Senator, I mean, it's a lot to talk about. But again, we have to take a break. This is Honorable Philip J. Pierre, our political leader and MP for Castries East, and we're speaking about his term as the Minister for Infrastructure, Ports and Transport. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back, St. Lucia. My guest, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, the MP for Castries East and the political leader of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Mr. Pierre, you had taken us through some of the achievements in your ministry as Minister for Infrastructure, Port Services and Transport. And, remarkably, I don't even know, you're telling us about a cost savings for the Balawash Bridge, which our opponents made such a big fuss. Also find out that there was a cost savings and all...
At two levels.
Yeah, and then they literally built a bypass road for $3 million and no word of that.
And no tender.
No tender. I don't know, sometimes I want to beat Labour Party for not screaming about these things from the rooftop. But I'm happy we have the opportunity to set the record straight. But another big one was the Bonte Bridge.
Yeah.
Could you take us through that?
Well, again, the Bonte Bridge was long overdue. There was flooding. All the residents of Bonte, the residents on that side of the road, when rain fell, it was flooding. People coming from Cap Estate, problems come across because it was flooding. So the bridge there was an old culvert structure. So the culvert could not take the volume of water that was coming on, climate change, etc. So we had to do a new bridge. But look at the difference, eh? Our bypass road was done with containers for between $700,000 and $900,000.
Okay.
Our bypass road. And again, a local contractor. Right? So we didn't spend $2 million on a bypass road. Our bypass was $700,000 something, less than $1 million.
Okay.
Yeah? Again, the bridge was done by a local contractor, and it was again 4-lane because we were planning for the 4-lane highway, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, for the 4-lane highway. So we had, here was the plan. Balawash 4-lane, Shock Bridge 4-lane.
Yes.
That was financed also. This government, I don't know what happened, but the World Bank had already given finance for that falling high. I don't know what happened to this government. They didn't do it. The shock bridge, then shock falling, Baton falling, Bonte falling. So that was the plan. So you have your bridges first fall in, and you just that. But it was, the residents were very happy, and the residents both in Bonte and those coming from Cap and these areas, because when it was raining, again it came within course, and local engineer this time, and a local contractor, and the bridge is there.
So what is
and up to now there's no flooding.
Noise about?
Propaganda, not noise, propaganda.
I mean, these people are really wasting Lucian's time, you know. It's a really waste of time.
And then we did the Sufra Bridge.
Yes, I was just going to come to that. That's the same bridge that Alan Chastney blew up.
Yes.
Just before the
elections. Yes. And that was the same bridge that he went when they speak about the Labour Party behaving disorderly, etc. You may recall the way he behaved.
Yes, it was Dalsall was having an event.
We opened the bridge.
You were opening the bridge.
I was opening the bridge. We opened the bridge because the bridge started with us, right? And if my message is right, they continued, I think, or no, they lost the election.
They lost the election.
Yeah, right. They done the bridge. They had done the work for the bridge, and they blew it up to start it to pretend, just like St. Jude.
Yes.
Just massive pretense. But again, we didn't change what they had. We kept the contractor. We kept the consultants. We kept everything they had in the Sufra Bridge. We kept it, Monday. And I want the Lucians to note the difference between the two approaches. We kept the consultant at Badawaj. We continued building St. Jude with their contractor. The Sufra Bridge, the same thing. We kept everything they had. Right? If my memory serves correct. And then we went to open it. And he came and then behaved disorderly. You use abusive language. And so when you see they try to say the party is violent, the party is behaving disorderly, they always take the speck of the mold from the eye and the speck of the dirt. The Labour Party has never gone to any opening of any official bridge or building and behaved the way he behaved when we opened the Sufra Bridge.
Yes, and he was not even a candidate. You had lost.
He had lost. He's lost. He wasn't even leader. I don't think he was leader. No. He had lost.
He had lost the election.
You understand? And he went in and he behaved in that fashion.
The arrogance of Alan Chastney.
But again, people forget, you know, and they're so much based in pretense that they forget these things. Anyhow.
Yes. So I mean, you've had a successful tenure by all intents and purposes.
And then the other bridges, we repaired many of them. We had to repair them completely. We did a bridge in Sufra. In fact, Sufra was called Bridgetown. For the amount of bridges we did in Sufra. We did a bridge somewhere between Jalousie, and that people wanted that for ages. It was a bridge. I've done some of them. I've forgotten. You know, so that bridge was needed for ages. You understand? Yeah. We also did the work for the Canaries Bridge, which they completed, and the Chumase Bridge. And you must recall the bridge built by Alba.
Yes.
The Alba Bridge in Denby. The Alba Bridge, right? We did that. And the Dubonnet, but Dubonnet is a story that must be told. Eh? Dubonnet is a bridge. Dubonnet is a little area in Denby North. And the people live across the hill. And then when rain, they could not get to the home.
Yes.
So when the Labour Party talks about putting people first, these are the examples which we've forgotten. When I spoke to the Honorable Sean Edwards, I promised him that my first infrastructural job would be to build that bridge for him. He says so all the time, right? Nobody could have gone, when it was rain, kids didn't go to school, nothing. That area is St. Lucia, under the United West Party rule, after they represented. So when you see the council about who did things for constituencies, you know, and try to have this propaganda, they allow that area that has supported them, right, to have actually a landlocked area where people could not go to school when rain fell, because the government thought it wasn't necessary. And we haven't begun to speak about lights. It wasn't necessary to build that bridge for them. Sean Edwards won the election in 2000 And he said 2011. And I said to him, comrade, you'll get that bridge. We built that bridge, local contractor again. When that bridge was built, if you'd seen joy in people's heart, I remember like a child saying, Mommy, the ice cream van can come up.
Very nice. Yeah.
You understand? And if, I mean, that transformed the ice cream van, the bread van, and life, the people I've never seen. And these are things that keep me. You see, in politics, I want to serve people. So when people speak about I'm weak or I didn't fight with Kenny Anthony and I didn't combat with Ernest Hilaire, and now there's a new one about Richard Fredericks. I don't know where that one is coming from. I'm weak, and I'm in politics money to serve people. You understand? That's why I'm the way as well.
I mean, I feel like the projects that you undertook, they were so transformative in terms of literally impacting people's
and that
lives.
Dubonnet one, that was impactful. Same way in my constituency, but we're not going there today. Same thing with the Dubonnet one. And then when we build that bridge, right, we change people's lives. Literally change people's lives. You see? So that bridge is also something I'm very proud of. So there's Dubonnet and there's the Albert Bridge. Remember there's a bridge. Then the bridge below along is the Tumase Bridge. That was then, we started it. When they came to government, they wanted to change it. Change the contractor and things so. And up to now, they still have issues with that contractor. The CDB said, no, you can't do it. You understand? And we started that bridge, and up to today, I'm not sure if they've opened that bridge, I'm not sure.
But Mr. Pierre, what?
They opened the one in Canaries, Canaries, we did it too. We started it also. They opened it. But I don't think, if I'm correct, I'm wrong, I'm sure will tell me. I don't think they ever had an official opening for that bridge. I don't think so. Okay. If I'm wrong, Sean will correct me.
I wanted to say though, but the Ministry of Infrastructure that you had, as compared to what Honorable Stevenson King has, they have they're almost different, because some of it was given to, is transport now under...
Transport is under the Ministry of Economic Development. Yes. And then ports remain first.
Yes.
Remain
with him.
Yeah.
So it's a little watered down now, for all intents and purposes.
It's very different.
It's different. Okay. But I mean, in all, would you think that your time as Minister for Infrastructure, that you did the work? And I mean, a big one for me would have been the Falling Highway, the Grosley Highway, and boy.
Yes, Moni, that one is almost heartbreaking.
Yeah, I don't even know how to even.
That one is. I mean, sometimes in my quieter moments, I believe that there's been some sort of I don't know if it's a malediction. That's what they call it, a malediction. Because, I mean, forget the politics. Forget I'm in opposition. But I'm a St. Lucian. I don't want St. Lucia to fail.
Yes.
I don't want to have a failed state. I don't want St. Lucia. I don't want to throw the baby away with the bathwater, as the United West Party want to do, as they did when we were in government. Have demonstration for 680 for gas that never existed. Talk about we'll lose our seabed because of Grindberg. That never happened. That will not happen. This kind of lies and we don't get involved in that. You understand? The Grosley Highway, right? If this government had just sat back and allowed the Grosley Highway to progress, today.
3 years now, because it would have been completed in 2018.
But let's give it a
No,
and say,
I'm not giving anything.
It would have been completed before hurricane, before COVID.
Yes. 2018. I saw the document. I
didn't bring them.
I saw it.
And what stopped the road from starting is because of our transparency, Because when the tendering went for the engineering works, one tender was $3 million different. And the Minister of Finance at the time says, no, it's too wide, send it back. And the tenders were supposed to be open on the 6th of June, election time. You see, and if we were like them, we could have waited, because we could have called elections in December. You know that?
Yes.
Elections could have been called as far as December. No, the term will finish in December. We had up to March of next year. So elections could have been basically been called under Labour in the year 2017. But we called it in June. And if we were government, if we were a government that understood convention, and a government that lived to the letter of the law, we could have held back elections and hold it, let's say, in October, to allow the Grosley Highway to start,
Yes.
to allow the St. Jude Hospital to be completed,
Yeah,
to allow the
airport.
to start. We could have done that if we were like them. And that would not have been something that we would have done hurriedly. It would have been something that a natural process. You understand? So that highway, what the plan was, you build all the ancillary roads.
Yes.
All the roads. So all the roads in the north would have been fixed. All the roads.
Oh my goodness.
All of them would have been done. But the funding was from the QATs, $11.2 million, and OPIC. Organized funding, loan signed. Not loan being negotiated in the Monday. Loan signed.
So wait, you're saying 11,000...
11.2 million?
2 million, 11.2 million EC dollars?
US dollars.
US dollars.
Yes. And I think there's like 10 million. The figures, but loan signed.
Okay.
QAT and OPIC. Loan signed. The argument when he brought it, he said, oh, you'd have to acquire property. And they're acquiring property for the land, for the 20 million.
Well, I guess is whose property you were acquiring, and now it's more beneficial to them.
The story was, oh, you have to acquire property. That's
and
why.
where they have acquired the property for this roundabout?
Exactly.
A roundabout too, where no one can understand.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. The plan was you have overpass in that area, right? Now, what happened is that we would have built all the ancillary roads. So you could have worked on the highway itself with easier.
Yes, so your traffic is diverted.
So within peak hours, you open and it's close hours, you say, no, to go on the highway. We had meetings with all the business owners.
Okay. So there was consultation in the area.
All the time. In the same way, I had to consult with the owner of the gas station when we were doing that. We had a consultation. And we made provision for him. In the gas station, the owner of the gas station. You know who he is. Very important man these days.
Yes,
you see? We had in negotiations with him. We never victimized him. He, of course, his business went down. And he was, we spoke to him. Right? Now, all the roads would have been done, completed, drainage extended, all the roads in Basic Quay, all these areas there.
Have you been through that Basic Quay road?
And not for a while.
It is
you see,
horrible.
All that was. I'm sorry we didn't bring the schedule of roads that we fixed. I should have brought it. I should have brought it. Then, after we'd have done going to the highway. Now you must recall, we were the ones who did the highway from the falling highway up to Shock.
Yes.
Right. So the plan was, you've got there already, you're going to do the Shock Bridge. The Shock Bridge was another component of, not for the highway, but the World Bank had funded the Shock Bridge. Up now, I don't know what happened to these funds. On a project called the DVRP project, which we negotiated, which you heard them talk about.
Talking about, okay, all right.
DVRP. Now, so the highway would have left the Shock Bridge and extend up to the north. There were discussions. The road was supposed to compete with walking paths, bicycle tracks, a modern highway with minimal land acquisition. Because when we came into government, when I came here, I said to the guys, we've got to minimize the land acquisition because land is expensive in that area. So there was a series of bypasses. You understand? And minimal land acquisition. And because if you look at where there is a falling highway, the falling bridge now, the land to be taken there is minimum. I don't know if you realize that, right? So that's how it would have been done.
But where would the road, the expansion begin And when would it have ended?
Would have began right after you leave the Shock Bridge, that area there.
As in Shock Roundabout area?
Shock Roundabout area, yes. Because the Shock Bridge would have been completed, yeah, and gone straight up to Grocery.
But what's happening now is nowhere close to Shock.
No, that is.
I don't understand.
That's it. And
I'm very confused.
And it's $20 million
For less than half of a road.
And if you look at transportation studies, what they tell you, I'm not an engineer. I never prove. There are some people who are engineers, doctors, lawyers, everything.
Economists, everything.
I'm not an engineer. I don't prove to know anything about engineering. Not about engineering. What I'm saying to you is that engineers have said that what causes the congestion in the road is the junctions, the going junctions, right? So there had been when it had been engineered to deal with that. And the traffic flows, the traffic tests had been done, the traffic flows, etc. So right now, we would have been riding on a modern highway.
Mr. Pierre, I feel robbed.
You should.
I feel robbed.
And up to this day, the government has not given a reason why they didn't do a highway. You know why? Because it would have been a legacy of the Labour Party and Philip J. Pierre and Kenny Anthony.
I feel robbed. And you heard an engineer speaking about even some of the design, and I mean sidewalks had gone down and then you see them digging them back up to put in pipes, as if okay, they now realized that the pipes had to go down. I mean, it's fascinating. There was no signage, and I know for a fact when you're doing projects, you have to put up a sign who the contractor is, the financing, you put it up. And I recall we actually made a post about that, a comment about where is the signage for this.
I don't know if you guys, so we're the ones who remember the divisions on the highway by Sanders. We're the ones who did that. Accidents. We don't want. I mean, get people forget that. That stayed there for years. For the 4 years they were there.
No, my generation should really feel robbed, because we're going to pay back
for that. You'll pay that.
I'm going to pay for that. My nieces, everybody's going to pay for that.
Between 2006, 2011, 2016, that's when they won, right? They won between we won between
2011 and
2006 and 2011.
Yes.
When they gave, remember that foreign, they refused to put the divisions in the road, you know that? I'm the one who did that. And because again, consultation with the taxi people, with the police, the minibus drivers, and to put these divisions.
There's not even a consultation now, because you see residents from the Rodney Bay area speaking about the noise, lack of consultation in the night, all throughout the night and the morning, the quality of life being affected. Why the rush? Tell me, is that an emergency? Why the rush? Another thing we did before we move on is that we went into a good arrangement with residents. And then we had a kind of what they call in Patois a coup de main, but a high level coup de main. Yes, where we went into the region, the residents, that if they put the money in the road for them, we'd help them in the tax. Okay.
Yeah.
Really, we did that?
Yeah, we did that. And the person who was pioneer that is Professor Lewis. Von Lewis has a brother who is a professor in science. I mean, that family is the Lewis family. I mean, this is he, and Von says he's his father's dullest child.
Okay, Professor.
Professor Emeritus is his father's dullest child. So you can imagine who the others are. Right? So Von has a brother. I think he's some biochemist. I think now they're doing research into Alzheimer and things. So he lives inside East Winds.
Okay.
And his road was horrible. So he pioneered. So I said to him, listen, if you build a road with us, we'll give you tax concessions or something, right, for the materials. So he pioneered that. All the residents. There was a lady who worked at the Bank of St. Lucia. Her husband is a guy who works on Wall Street. I think I can't remember his name. He and Professor Lewis, right? They did that and they repaired their own road. And the government gave them the technical support and the material, and then they know it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a model that was going forward. Other residents because it is a tax for them, you understand?
Yes.
So when we tell people that we've always been in the business of fiscal reform and changes in the tax structure, that's why our $4,000 a month tax will come to being, and that's why our no property tax is going to work, because people don't understand that there are different models. There are different modes of getting things done. What you need is to have the empirical evidence and to have the consultation. Anyone who talks about property tax, you ask them, how much money have you collected over property tax? How much have you collected? Right now, incidentally, I actually come into Parliament on Tuesday with some reform to land.
If you ask some solutions, have they ever paid property
No.
tax? Everyone will tell you, no.
No.
A lot of people will tell
and
you
they come
no.
into Parliament. The same people who lambasted me, they come into Parliament on Tuesday with some property tax amendment.
Mr. Pierre, we have to take a break up, but Lucia, I think, just so much information, and I wish we had started these conversations a lot earlier, because there's so much information of what we did and what we're going to do to share with you. But we'll be right back with Chill and Chat with Honorable Philip J. Pierre. Stay tuned. Welcome back, St. Lucia, to Chill and Chat. My guest, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, the political leader and MP for Castries East. And Mr. Pierre, we left off with the construction, and I take great pains to say construction of that Castries Grocery Highway, because you're telling me that this was supposed to start from Shock and
go right into Grocery.
Right into Grocery, but right now we've only got it from about Volney's gas station to just about that Kilago Junction.
And remember, and also a little piece by Sandals has here.
Again, St. Lucia, I think if you don't feel robbed, you really should. But, people speak about the corruption of it all, but I always think about, the loss of what we could have been doing now with money spent, because, again, that it's a DFC. We don't truly know.
No tendering.
The cost of these things, and we have to pay it back, like you say, as if we're paying back a car. So it's not even an extended loan for, say, 15 years.
And the curated loan, I think, was about 2%, with, I think, 5 years grace.
But why?
Nobody knows. In fact, these guys believe that there's a transition in government. When you get the other government talks to you. So a guy called me and said to me, he said, what's happening? I said, how you mean what's happening? He said, you all cancel the loan. I said, which you all? He said, the government cancel the loan. I said, are you serious? So I was saying the document. The government actually wrote and canceled the loan. The same thing they did for the CDB and the lights.
Well, the CDB and the lights, and also the airport, they canceled the
they
paid up. What?
Cancel.
And they
had to pay $1 million.
$1 million US
after the Canadians had given us a grant to employ the IFC. They had given us a grant.
We cried.
The government has given us a grant. We got a grant. You see, because these projects, when we're in government, we're not guided by politicians, The technocrats negotiated under the guidance of the policymakers. I went to Washington once for discussion on the IFC, and that's it. After that, I never went. There was some opening of tenders in France, I think. I never went. SLASPA, the lawyers. I mean, Monday, you hear about this airport thing. Again, it's heartbreaking,
No, this airport needs a whole show.
Yes, it needs
a whole show.
No. So, I mean, up to today, so before we go to the airport, let's finish the highway. Then, also, we had done a consultancy. The CDB had given us a grant for consultancy on the North-South Link Road. Remember, when Sir John was in government, he always said, John Compton always had a vision of roads, right? So what he saw that driving on the Bad Hill always collapsed. So there was an idea how you build a tunnel through the Bad Hill and get out of it, like the tunnel on the Millennium Highway. That was John Compton's idea, right? When he came to government, we found that. And there's another idea of building a road going across from Ford, or caused by fawn, dauphin, or something. So we called, the CDB gave us a grant.
Okay.
A grant for a study of the North-South Link Road. When the grant came in, we invited the parliamentary representative for Southeast Cashews at the time. And he is now the present Minister of Economic Development. We invited him. Now, we haven't even spoken about flooding in Bexon.
Yes.
And how we'd got
the DVRP and even for Dennery South also.
In the Bexon flooding. I mean, this thing is almost the Bexon flooding, right? We've done a complete study on the Bexon flooding, and we never said we'd stop the flooding. We said we'd mitigate the flooding. A complete study was that, the minister, the parliamentary representative, didn't treat how they treat us. He was invited, he was there. He knew the plans. No, but he's an engineer himself. So he knows the plans are better than the plans. He has a better plan.
And
right?
an economist and a lawyer.
So the North-South Road, exactly. So the North-South Link Road, the CDB prepared a feasibility study, which he came to, he saw. You understand? And that was financed by a loan given by Cameron, which Kenny Anthony, Prime Minister Cameron, which Kenny Anthony was the Prime Minister at the time. And we said that grant would have been dedicated to build that road, to take the traffic out of Castries and go straight into Fever. That's where your international airport is. Right? I heard the government say they are the ones who got it. I don't know how they manage that. And then they either say they're doing some other thing, which is I don't understand that. But so we did that. To that highway. So this country would have had a modern highway to the north that would cut travel time, because the purpose of a highway is to cut travel time. It's not to give contractors money.
Well, when a Labour Party builds and other normal governments build,
it's to cut travel time. And then the studies that have been done, it would have cut travel time from the north, from Cashews to the north.
So even now when we see the construction that's going on now, Mr. Pierre, I mean, if to just apply logic, because when you're coming up on the 4-lane highway from Castries into Shock, the traffic moves fairly well now that it's been extended to Halcyon. When you go back to 2-lane, is it not just now bottleneck?
The same thing. And when you get to Moshi, when you get the top to gap to Moshi, it's the same thing.
But I don't understand.
And the purpose of a highway is to cut travel time.
Yes.
So what will you do now? What will you do to cut travel time after
So who's
that?
the engineer on this project?
I have no idea.
We don't know.
I have no idea.
It's never been advertised.
Never been advertised. I have no idea. So into that, so then that highway, and that's the highway there. If you notice, now you see the infrastructure ministry, we did, and again, we have time, we can talk about school buildings. We did the Miku school in the Miku constituency. We extended the current school. That's for another show. That's infrastructure game.
Yes.
Because at our time, infrastructure dealt with school repairs. Now when you hear them talk about, we only spend $1 million.
Oh yes, the budget. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
When they always talk about the $1 million for schools. If we did so much work on $1 million,
I know, clearly.
compared to the 10 million they have and what they did, there is a question. So when you talk about, we only spend $1 million in schools, you must understand, Mondi, when we came into government, there was a BIP program, right?
Which is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. The BIP program had to be amended to help in the school repairs, because we had come after Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve, the government didn't cause Hurricane Thomas, but they had to make a lot of adjustments to repair the schools that got badly damaged after Hurricane Thomas. And they pretend not to know that.
Yes.
They pretend not that. That is why we built the 4-hour school, the school in 4 That was done on the me. You understand? Because we had to use these resources, amend them, because of the work of the damage of Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve storm. It damaged all the school infrastructure, or most of the school infrastructure. So when they make the noise about school repairs, they refuse to tell the people of St. Lucia that happened because the schools deteriorated after Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve.
But more importantly, that the budget was not within the Ministry of Education as
it was with
now,
us.
because it's the Ministry of Infrastructure. So they're really misleading people when they want to show the Ministry of Education budget,
exactly.
as opposed
so
to.
How could you build extension of the Miku School on $1 million? You build extension of the Corinth School $1 million. You build a Forster School on $1 million. You started as a nursery again. You started a second on $1 million. So this is just straight propaganda. You understand? Anyway, so we are talking about the airport?
Yes.
Or we getting there? So the highway there, you must understand also that you remember the road between Monrepo and going to FIFA collapsed. You remember that? By canals.
Yes.
That road collapsed. And Kenny Anthony.
Oh, you had to do the bypass.
Kenny Anthony was the one that was his part. He had the south and had the north. We divided the country. So we had a boundary. So you understand? So that was his part. And you must also remember in the concrete road collapsed also. The concrete road by the airport, that collapsed. Have you forgotten that? You understand? People forget these things. The work with the kind of reconstruction work we had to do as a government. What we inherited compared to what these guys inherited.
And at the time, you also were dealing with, no one ever, I remember 2011, even if the financial crisis was in 2008, because of, the lag time that it would have taken, we were getting the brunt of it during that time.
Plus the increase in the public service bill, in the public service salaries. Yes. Which we had to welcome it, because the civil servants needed the money. But so you must remember that. So we had to do these things, That road collapsed by canals, and you remember that you had to go into right down, things don't go. You understand?
I remember that.
We did again a local contractor. We did that. That's people's memories. Yeah. The collapse of the Beanfield Road. We did that. Understand? I'm sure you don't remember that the concrete strip.
I just remember the horror of the time, though. It looked like a war zone.
What did that government have? That government inherited a country where all these things had been done, right? Where the countries in the going around the country had been well smoothed and well organized. They inherited a thing where we'd done all the major work after both Hurricane Thomas and the Christmas Eve stuff. They inherited plans complete for the Grocery Highway. They inherited a feasibility study for the North-South Ring Road, and they inherited a concessionary agreement for Hiwanoro International Airport.
And all they had to do was implement.
If this government had implemented these projects, we would not have been that conversation.
Yes. And especially during COVID-19 and the stresses that St. Lucians are facing, that you're now finding money to build these roads when people are hungry, people are losing their houses.
And then you're building roads with the same money that you could have built the roads a long time before with the money that was available for you from the QATs.
Okay. Mr. Pierre, I need to ask this last question, and before we leave, how would a Labour Party approach this differently? And it could simply be that you go back to good governance and how it is
First of all, we are a party that came to serve. You understand? We are a party of serving. We want to serve people. You're not in this thing for self-aggrandizement. You're not in this thing to say, like, Kenny didn't, I did. We're not in the I business. We're in the people's business. The Labour Party will have to look at the scope of all these projects. The scope, and we have to decide moving forward, understanding that people are suffering. Yes. Children still do not have devices to go to school Monday. Yes. Regardless of the boast, there are children in St. Lucia, many children, who've lost what you can call now a gap year because they had no devices to go to school. That is a fact. Yes. St. Jude Hospital is still not completed, and last night rain came through the cladding. You see the cladding, the pictures they had of cladding, and they say if you give them 50 days, the money is still a joke.
It's not. It's sad. You did a prior, you laugh.
That's not a joke. Remember they
Prior,
said
you laugh.
if you give them 50 days, they'll complete St. Jude Hospital, and that's going to be fine. And they put a big picture of the hospital and say that's what you had, and Labour can do it. We did it last night. It was flooding.
Yes.
It was flooding. Rain was through.
They call it the state of the art.
Yeah, state of the art of modern hospitals. It was flooded. Before they put one bed, now it's not me. Now because they finish propaganda.
Right.
You know.
I don't understand it, Mr. Pierre. It's very disturbing.
So we have to look at the scope of these projects. Whereas this government could have just moved people into the East Wing, and that's it.
Yes.
But vengeance, political retribution, make them cry. 90%. If you sell in popcorn and you say Shasta must go, we must move you. You see, we are the boss. And then even though it's a habit of dealing with church matters in a particular way, when you do it, we will call the police for you. You know, we'll if you go by government buildings, we'll send the police, we'll arrest you. Yeah. If you don't have a mask, we'll brutalize you. That's the government. But the difference is us, we are government that serves. We are government that thinks about people. So when you get into government, our first priority is to see that people, the children's education, the St. Jude Hospital gets completed. We're not sure what you're doing with what they have there. The Oki Hospital is working. The X-ray machines are working. People get basic food. We're going to see about people and examine the scope and the range of the projects that they're doing now with a view to seeing how we can find the best way for the people of St. Lucia.
Thank you, Mr. Pierre. And thank you, St. Lucia, for joining us. I mean, there was so much information, and we haven't even touched sports services or transport. I know we always leave a lot, St. Lucia, and we haven't even gone in depth.
So let's do one more.
Yes, so we'd have to do. Yeah, so Mr. Pierre has promised to give us one more chill and chat, because you know there are lots of issues which we have to touch on, and they could have been avoided, and I think that
a lot could have been avoided. You had a more mature government, a government that was more mature, a government that was not so concerned with political retribution, vengeance. Yeah. And right now, they are on the verge of wanting to interfere with freedom of the press in a very subtle and dangerous way.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about and a lot to think about, but as you go throughout your week, do keep St. Lucia in your thoughts, in your prayers, and when it's time to vote, that you would make the right choice, put you first, put your family first, and put St. Lucia first. Thank you, Mr. Pierre, again for joining us, and this was Chill and Chat.